The BBQ League is the ultimate barbecue experience. Here's why. One small annual investment from you instantly unlocks all 70 plus tell-all recipes, enthusiast recipes, restaurateurs, and more in their unmatched library. This isn't your typical YouTube type content. World champions like Getting Basted, Shake and Bake Barbecue, Heavy Smoke Barbecue, La Pasadita Barbecue, and 913 Barbecue share their full tell-all recipes. No secret is left unsaid, and a new video release is guaranteed every single week of your membership. You'll also see unfiltered looks from all levels of pitmasters during their live competition coverage, and those same pitmasters are accessible through the league's upbeat online community. As soon as you sign up, you'll also have a full arsenal of some of the best discounts in barbecue from brands like Snake River Farms, Blues Hog, Big Papa Smokers, Gunter Wilhelm, Gateway Drum Smokers, and more. The BBQ League puts on members-only contests throughout the year, hosts live and virtual events, and offers full access league lounge at participating events. Listeners to this podcast can receive $10 off of the $100 annual membership this month only by using the code JulyPitmaster, all in caps, on thebarbecueleague.com. So I advise you to do this. It's been a great help to me and a lot of people out there. There is no better $100 spent on barbecue right now than the BBQ League. So, July Pitmaster on thebarbecueleague.com. Alrighty, we are here this week with one of the coolest guys in barbecue, Ryan Murphy from Dirt Road BBQ. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
It's good to have you on the show, man. Happy belated birthday.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I have to tell a story about probably one of my favorite barbecue nights ever. And that was I believe it was Thursday night at the King of the Smoker. And we had all been drinking a little bit but we were hungry. So I think it was me and Kim and you and Karen, right?
Yeah, where we Ubered to In-N-Out.
We Ubered to In-N-Out and yeah, got a ton of terrible food and brought it back to the hotel. That was a good time. Oh man, I'll never forget that trip. All of us just piled in that car. It was great.
Yeah, I think it was like a Nissan Sentra. And,
Yeah.
we went through like an intersection and you and I were in the back, crammed in there and bottomed out.
That'll happen when you have two large guys in the back of a car. So, man, let's talk some barbecue because, well, we got more stories to tell because several people have referenced you on this podcast with some hilarious stories. I understand that you recently took a long road trip with Mr. Blaine Hunter.
Yeah, we went to Lawrenceville, Georgia earlier this year to cook and pick up a smoker for him.
Yeah, and he was telling me how, everyone was getting ready to go eat. And you were like, no, I got to stay here and clean this smoker. You are probably, I think, one of the most OCD people about the cooker and one of the people that I've learned the most from in terms of Jambo maintenance. Can you talk about your process and how you keep your pit clean?
I just look at it as like some people just like, I look in their pit and it's just like leftover like grease and mold, and I just don't know how you'd want that on your food. So it almost bothers me to a point where I can't handle it. So and the pit really wasn't that dirty, but it was one of those things where it's like they were going to go eat and I was just like, hey, I'll just stay back and scrape this thing out. But yeah, it's just one of those things that's always kind of been a pet peeve of mine, and I like things like organized, neat and clean, and it's just something that I've always done, and I kind of feel like it helps. Is you know you don't why would you want to eat something off something that's filthy?
Right. No, I agree. And, I when I looked in your pit for the first time and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, and that's kind of how I've kept mine ever since that happened.
I mean, there's a difference between something that's got a little bit of seasoning on it, and then something that's got like 3 inches of grease setting on the racks too. So I mean, it don't have to be perfectly spotless, but there's some of
Yeah.
them out there that I've seen that are pretty bad.
Yeah. I wouldn't, I wouldn't be a, it would be wrong of me not to bring it up. I was with some guys a few weeks ago, ALE at barbecue, and they were behind me, and I walked over Friday afternoon and looked inside their pit, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" They're like, "Ah, we clean it in the morning when it's warm. It'll be fine." I was like, "Oh man, like that's no good." They ended up GCing that day, but they did clean it out in the morning, so it was pretty. Guess if you have your routine, that's one of the things that we talk a lot about on here is people's routines and stuff, and superstitions. And I know that you like to do things the same way every contest. Can you talk about some of your routines and superstitions?
Um, I don't know. I guess I do have a pretty set routine. Like contest week, I try to like trim my chicken on Tuesday night, trim my brisket and pork on Wednesday. If possible, we try to get to a contest early because I like to have everything done. So like on Friday, I don't have that much to do. Like if we can get to a contest on Thursday night and set up, then like I can sleep in on Friday morning, and
Right.
Friday's just an easy day. And a lot of times when we were cooking a lot, it was one of those things where a lot of times Joe Pierce with Slaps and I would go eat breakfast on Friday morning, and that was kind of a routine thing. And that was just one of the regimented things. Like I kind of had something every day of the week that I did. And,
Yeah.
but that was kind of like always kind of my thing is to try to make Friday as easy and as stress-free as possible. Where a lot of teams are, struggling to get there, showing up late, getting set up, still have to trim all their meat, and
Yeah.
it's a big rush. And I think that's where you can miss things, but just you're in a rush then.
Yeah. And I think getting there and having everything done that you can before you get there just leaves a lot more brain power for the actual cook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just
Now,
makes things just like for me, just so much like less stress on me. It's like if more that I can have done ahead of time, the better.
yeah, absolutely. Now, I also understand that your wife Karen has a Blaine story too.
Are you talking about where we were? I think we were in Cheney, and I had been grinding like sweet money for ribs, and I was out, and I knew Blaine had some, and he was like 2 trailers away. So I sent Karen over, and he didn't know who it was, and he just hollered, "Just come on in." Well, he has this thing where he always just will be on the toilet with the door open because he thought it was like David McAllister or something. Well, my wife walks in and she catches Blaine on the toilet, and that's kind of his thing, I guess.
Right, and now poor Karen's scarred for life.
Yeah, that's something that you just can't unsee.
Right. And he's very proud of that entire situation.
Oh yeah, he's did it to Bethany. He's did it to so many people.
And it's just not, yeah, it's not a good thing to look at.
No.
Uh, so you're a big music guy when you cook, right? You like to listen to music?
Yeah, and my playlist is pretty. I'd probably catch a lot of heat for it because I listen to a lot of like, I guess, country rap, like Adam Calhoun, Jelly Roll, Ryan Upchurch, stuff like that. But it'll go from that to like stuff that Karen listens to. I mean, it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
diversified from rap to country to classic rock. I mean, we pretty much listen to everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I remember when we were in Valley, Nebraska together and listening to some of the Infant Sorrow songs from
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a great time, and I was like, you came over and started singing, and I was like, that's awesome. That's awesome. Having your week be the same every week, I think is a big deal, and I know that a lot of people can't do it. But I think it just puts you in the right mindset so that you can help stay focused. Is there anything that you can do that you do in the trailer whenever you feel like you've lost your focus?
I don't know. I probably maybe just step back and let out a string of cuss words and maybe have a shot. But you do have things when things don't go quite your way or something's going awry. But I mean, I think usually through experience, you just kind of know kind of what to do. You just kind of learn from situations. So I think the more you cook, the less you have of those instances.
Yeah, I would agree with you too. It's having that experience and having all the cooks under our belts really keeps us prepared for a lot of things that could happen. How has your career and life experiences outside of barbecue prepared you to be a better pitmaster?
My family growing up was in like the restaurant and bar business, and my biological dad was like a chef.
Hmm.
So like my mom always kind of teased me that's like in my blood to be like a good cook. So I guess I don't know, it's kind of just in my family, like cooking food and stuff. So I think maybe some of that just rubbed off on me somewhat.
Yeah.
And my sister and brother-in-law kind of got started in it. Our hometown had like a little non-sanctioned barbecue contest, and he had always smoked a bunch of food. And one year they weren't going to be able to do the contest, and they basically conned Karen and I into doing it. And that's kind of how we got started. So, kind of passed on from family, so to speak.
Yeah, that's interesting. In that, I I learned a lot from cooking with my mom, but I never thought that it would lead to like competition barbecue and everything that has been entailed with that.
Yeah, I really never planned to really get into it. It's we did the first one, and we didn't have that good of results, and it was just the natural competitiveness in me is like, I can't leave on that. So it kind of just led to, wanting a better result.
Yeah.
And then once you got some results, and then it was like you get addicted to that.
Yep. And then you get addicted to the good times and going out and
Right.
seeing everybody. Yeah.
Yep.
I tell people all the time it's a hell of a hobby and a great habit, but it can eat up everything. And
Yeah. There
sometimes,
for a few years, we were just consumed by it. I mean, that's all we did.
yeah, yeah, us too, and to a lot of extent, we still do. So, so I don't ever foresee getting out of it. Has there ever been a time where you've thought about quitting competition barbecue?
Yeah. Probably within like last year, and even maybe it's some at the beginning of this year. We didn't cook that much last year. We had opportunities to cook. It was just when we were cooking, we weren't really doing anything different. We just weren't getting the results that we'd gotten before.
Hmm.
And, things were like everything had changed last year. Like it was harder to get good competition meat, purses were down. It was just everything was different. And I was just like, why am I continually going out and just kind of like beating my head into this wall?
Hmm.
And it was like I was starting to not have as much fun. I think I was a little bit burnt out on it,
Yeah.
honestly. And I was, remembered that I had other hobbies that I like to do too. So I think, like you said earlier, I don't see us probably ever getting completely out of it. But there was some times where I was just like, man, I'll just, why am I doing this?
Hmm.
But and at the beginning of this year, it was like everything had gotten so expensive. And I remember early on, there was a couple weeks where it was just impossible to find good ribs, like good St. Louis cut ribs. And it was like, I'm having troubles finding meat. Diesel's so expensive. some of the purses around the Kansas City area are just ridiculous,
Hmm.
like low. And I was just like, I'm just not going to do this. And we weren't getting very good results. Well, luckily the last few contests, we've kind of started to get kind of back in the swing of things and are starting to enjoy it. And I'm just being a little bit more picky about the contest, going to places where we know that we like the venue, we like the contest, and we know that our friends and stuff are going to be there and we're going to enjoy it and have a good time.
That's awesome, man. That's what it's all about. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about gear. What's one of the best or most worthwhile investments that you've made in competition barbecue?
Wow, there's probably a couple. I mean, probably the biggest investment would probably be, but also the best would probably be our porch trailer.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not something that like anybody like new starting out could go get.
Hmm.
So, but that was a game changer. It just cut so much time off, like set up and tear down, and it just makes things so much easier. Um,
Yeah. And comfortable.
yeah, you know, when it storms, you aren't dealing with canopies. It just makes things way easier. Another thing is I'm kind of torn on it because I think classes are a really good thing, but they've also, I think, have a negative impact to a degree too. So for new people, classes will shorten the learning curve.
Oh,
You know,
definitely. By
yeah,
years.
yeah, and that was like one of the biggest things for me early on was taking a class. So I'd say probably a class or a trailer, or maybe even when we switched to the Jambo, the
Yeah.
smoker itself.
Hmm. Well, those are all expensive things, like you mentioned. Do you have any purchases of $100 or less that have most positively impacted your competition barbecue life?
I'm not sure where it is on the price range, but I'm pretty sure it's under $100. Be that the burn in jig from 270 Smokers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not the best with knife skills always, so that thing's really been a game changer for me as far as making like real consistent, precise burn ins. So
Hmm.
it's something that we use every week. Now burn ins might not always go in our box, but it's something that I use at every contest.
That's interesting that you brought up it might not go in every box, because I think that's something that a lot of newer and inexperienced pit masters can really learn from. Is that, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, don't put that eighth rib or the burn ends or that seventh piece of chicken in there if it's not as good as the other six. There's no reason to. You got to put your best meat forward and let that stand on its own.
That's something that I really fought with my pork boxes. I always tried to put like different like a lot of different muscles in the
Hmm.
box. And I was almost beating myself because I was competing essentially against myself too much. And I know halfway through this year, I just simplified it and I'm literally putting bacon and money muscle. And since I've simplified it and just went back to those two, our pork scores have went way up.
Yeah, and it's eliminating a lot of stuff out of your brain that you don't have to think about anymore. And
Because
I think that's important.
for so long, I thought that I had to have like some chunks with bark in there. And I was putting, that horn or eye muscle in there. And it was just, I think I was just competing against myself. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with burn ends. Like if the burn ends are really good, they definitely need to be in the box. But if they're not, there's been plenty of times where there's been a lot of 180s with slices only. So
Yeah, you went on a hell of a run in brisket there for a couple of years. Pretty hard to beat.
I always seem to manage to do just good enough to get like second.
You've had quite your fair share of first places too, though. Do you use a lot of technology in your approach?
I would say I'm kind of 50-50 in that regard. I do use, like, when we wrap, I'll put a probe in the flat and a probe in the butts just to like then to check. But
Mhm.
I cook with a lot of just like feel and gut. But I'd say I'm kind of 50-50. I don't use a lot of, I don't have a probe in every piece of meat that I have on the cooker or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I know that there's some guys out there that track like temperature throughout the entire cook and when they do things and when the doors open. And it's like, I don't know. I think sometimes there could be a lot of information overload, if you will,
Yeah, and
where
every piece of meat's different too. I mean, you can ballpark things. Like, I pretty much know, like, within, an hour, my brisket's probably going to come off, but it changes, you know, week to
yeah,
week. So it's done when it's done.
exactly. Exactly. That's another thing that I think all of us try and teach newer teams is I can't give you a temperature. I can't tell you when exactly that's going to be done. It's done when it's done, and you just have to stay on top of it. And the only way you can do that is with experience.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the hardest things for me to learn. Was I was one of those guys when I first started, was everything had to be about temperature. And it took a while for me to realize it's not, it's about feel. And
Hmm.
that's just something that you get with a little bit of experience.
Yep. Who would you say has impacted your life the most in competition barbecue?
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if I have like necessarily a direct mentor.
I'm just glad you didn't say Brad.
Definitely not Brad. I don't know. Like, probably some of the older, like, successful guys like Jeff Staney, Rod Gray, guys like that, you know, had like mega success. Like, it's funny how it's barbecue. So like, what have you done for me lately? And people forget, especially in competition barbecue, like how good people were, just a few years ago. Like,
Right.
it's so, like, we have like the barbecue hall of fame, but people like just have like, kind of, we have no sense of like history of like how good, like how good like Danny Mikes was, or any of those type of guys. So I kind of look back on like some of those guys.
No, that's good. And that's I'm trying to interview a lot of those guys through this podcast to kind of let them bring their stories back out and let people know who they are and who they were and what they did and kind of try and preserve a little bit of that history.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's something that's pretty important to me because like you said, just sitting around talking with like Danny Mikes, I mean, it's unbelievable what you can pick up. It's
Well,
just
and I don't even think like most people know in KCBS, but I think there was a year that I think he cooked like 20 times and won like 18 grand championships or something. It's like he's kind of like an unknown, but how good he was when he competed.
yeah, and and he's just an insanely nice guy.
Yeah,
It's
probably some of the nicest people in barbecue.
absolutely. When you hear the word successful in terms of barbecue, who's the first person that comes to mind?
I'll go back and say somebody like Jeff Staney. Like, you
Yeah.
think like I heard a story where him and his wife Joy started, like, literally started catering out of a small kitchen in Westwood, Kansas. And then they went on to have their, barbecue team. And now he's, Joe's Kansas City. The Kansas City barbecue store has a USDA facility. I don't know how many other businesses he's owns and is involved in, but, barbecue Hall of Famer. I mean, he's pretty much done everything.
Yeah, Jeff is a pretty amazing guy. Also, again, another just super nice guy, and
Yeah.
and the stuff that he does through the Kansas City barbecue store is pretty amazing. The restaurant, everything you mentioned. Yeah, that's somebody we need to have on here for sure. So when you are having a problem with a meat or something like that, who do you call for counsel? Who's your lifeline?
Well, I'm pretty lucky. We have a little barbecue thread going where Blaine Hunter and Joe Pierce and Brad Leiniger are on it. So, I got access to some guys that are a lot better than me. So anytime that, I can usually reach out and, pick somebody's brain. In fact, about a month ago, at the end of June, we were cooking a double out in Holdrege, Nebraska. And I've been struggling in chicken. And, early on in our barbecue career, that was one meat that we were always really good in. And it's kind of just slipped away from us. And I was talking to Brad. I hate to give Brad any credit, but I have to give him credit on this. And, he just simply asked, he's like, "What are you cooking it to?" And I told him, and he's just like, "Take it farther, dummy." And I hadn't won chicken since 2017. And the next day, I cooked it farther, and lo and behold, we won chicken 180. First time we'd won chicken in 4 years. So, it's something, and that just shows like when you're off, you're not off by very far. It's like everything is so tight now.
Yeah. Well, it's like you mentioned earlier with the classes, the field has gotten a lot tighter. It's everybody's had two or three classes and has some vague idea of what they need to do.
Yeah, like when we started, 10 years ago, you could find a contest that you could kind of maybe somewhat cherry pick or something and go somewhere where the field wasn't as strong. But you just can't do that anymore. Everywhere you go, like the fields are strong. There's going to be 5, 6 teams that are capable of winning everywhere. It's just, there's just, the classes have made everybody so competitive.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. But it's kept more people in the sport or in the hobby, I think, in terms of they can experience some success early
Yeah.
and that keeps them engaged.
Yeah. The one negative thing I maybe feel that classes have done is it's maybe narrowed like flavors down some. Like we've kind of all gotten into the same box.
Yeah, I would agree with that because we always tell each other and everybody like we're all trying to cook the best average barbecue. Um, I would love to see some changes, or I don't know if it's changes, but something where some more creativity can be rewarded. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It seems like if you get too far out of the norm, you don't get rewarded for it. You know, you'll get hammered.
Yep, get back in line. Oh man, that's good. So what this is a great question. I'm going to ask it. How important is the art of psyching out your competition and psychological warfare during barbecue competitions?
I I don't think there's I don't know if that I don't know if you really can. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I feel like there's you guys out west especially. You guys mess with each other a lot more than we do out here.
I don't know if we're trying to actually psych each other out or it's just
Just having fun.
yeah.
I tell people stories about going out there and we're all throwing beer bottles on top of each other's trailers and people here are just like they retract in horror like how could you do something like that, it's like it's just a little bit of a different vibe.
That's for sure. It does seem like they're more uptight.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's a little. Some people take it, very seriously, and I love the camaraderie of it all and having doing the fun stuff, and that's good stuff. So we love to talk about our successes and the great things that we do and the wins and everything, I like to talk about failures. Do you have any favorite failures of yours that really taught you something about moving forward that led to future success?
Like going back to earlier, we've all had like, I think just experiences where, just little things like, you don't wrap your ribs up as well, or you drag them across the grate and you rip them and you lose all your wrap liquid, or same thing with a brisket, and you learn that you might have to put a little bit of a pan under them or something to not rip your foil. We've just had little things like that just little tricks and tips that you learn through experience of things not to do. Or yeah, another example was I know this just happened to me a couple cooks ago, is I'm now cooking chicken on the drum. And the last time I cleaned the drum, I recalibrated the thermometer and I messed it up. And when I went to check chicken at 11:30, I was at 160 degrees.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, I had to rip the diverter out and, rage chicken for, you know, about 15 minutes. And I ended up getting a pan, up to about 190, which the texture still wasn't where I wanted it, but we ended up salvaging like a ninth place call. So it's just things like that. Like you're going to make mistakes. Things aren't going to go right, but it's like knowing how to react and how to fix those mistakes. I think that's what separates the guys who are just good to the guys that are great. Like how you finish something, like finishing that last 15, 20 minutes.
It really is. I think it's the most important 20 minutes that we're doing something. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think like Tim Shear's probably the best at, like, if you've ever cooked around him and seen how just out of shape and messy he is, but like he knows exactly what to add to something to fix a mistake, or how to tighten up at the end when it's time to box something. I think he's, probably one of the best at that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think there's, probably 10 guys out there that really thrive in that last 10 minutes. And that's something that I've really been trying to work on myself, in terms of improving how I do and how I taste and what I'm looking for. So,
Yeah, that's probably one of my weaknesses, is I get so regimented in what I'm trying to do that at the end that sometimes I'm not willing to maybe take a chance that I should.
right. And then the only way you learn is by taking that chance,
Exactly.
and seeing seeing how things go. So, what's the most surprising thing to come out of competition barbecue for you?
Probably I would say probably like like going in, like just starting out, like the friends that I've, like lifelong friends that I've got. Like I didn't probably expect to, like, the people and like the group of people that I've met. Like there's guys that, I'll have like friends. These guys will be around for the rest of my life. I probably didn't expect that, like when I started competition barbecue. Like even if I'm not cooking, we're still texting. Um, there's guys that, that's he doesn't even cook that much anymore, or he cook at all on a team. And we go pheasant hunting in the off season together. So I would say that probably the relationships that you build.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People that'll be friends with you forever and do anything for you.
Yeah.
That's the one constant in barbecue that is pretty universal. Barbecue people are pretty awesome.
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part. 90%.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a young smart cook who's about to enter the world of competition barbecue?
Don't do it. Yeah. Jump right in. Like I see people that are like so hesitant and they want to like maybe go do like a backyard or something. I would just say go straight. There's no other way to, I think the best experience you're going to get is just to jump in and do it. You know, get with another team that has some experience and like park next to them in a contest. So like if you have questions, like you can holler over and ask, but just jump in and do it.
I love that advice. I think that's awesome.
Because I think that's how you're going to learn the fastest. And then obviously, you know, a class, but I mean, if you want to cook, just get in and do it. It doesn't matter the cooker, anything, just get in and do it.
Nothing teaches like experience, buddy. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Well, Ryan, thank you for being on here, but now we got to do the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I hope you're ready for these.
All right.
I'm excited about them.
Making me nervous.
What do you see about barbecue on social media that upsets or bothers you?
Probably like when a really good team like has a bad category and then they post that box on social media, like almost like, how dare you like judge this box down?
Right. I love that stuff too.
It's kind of like bothers me. Like we never put any of our boxes out there, or somebody who's cooked a long time and knows it's a good looking box and they put it out there and like are kind of fishing for like pats on the back. You know what I'm talking about when they put it on like
absolutely
like rate my, you know, or
how
judge my box. Yeah, you know, or like fishing for that. And I'm just like, you've got like 30 grand championships. You know what a good box is. You're just out there wanting everybody to. It's that kind of stuff that kind of irks.
Yeah, gotcha. Do you have any favorite pre, during, or post competition meals?
Probably like the kolaches that people bring around for breakfast in the Midwest. And a lot of times after, Karen and I like to do like Mexican after a contest.
Yeah, that's one of our favorites too. Anything with barbecue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a favorite present that you like to give to people?
I don't know if there's one specifically. I think if I'm going to give a gift, I'd want to know the person and give them something that would be meaningful to them.
Right on. I've started giving people barbecue sauce. Our new barbecue sauce. That's my go-to now.
Maybe alcohol.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, last question. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, getting a message out to millions of people, what would it say and why?
Wow, you're getting deep.
I know.
Talk less, listen more.
That's a great one. Wow. Cool. We'll make that the title of this episode. Well, Ryan, thank you for being on here. You want to tell people where they can find you online? And any sponsors you want to hit?
Yeah, our sponsors, Cosmo Competition Products, the Kansas City Barbecue Store, Blues Hog. I think that's pretty much it. And you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Dirt Road BBQ.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking some time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and share it out with all your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel as well. We will have another episode for you next week. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedenka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke LLC. All rights reserved. Copyright 2021.